what about me? I feel like it's a classic and a simplified book where in other places they make it very complicated, right? So with that being said, we no want the misconception thrown out there because we know what people think. So I want it to be clarified. Like, can people use this book to avoid therapy, or if that's necessary, or because that's something that will come to a lot of people's mind. They'll buy this book thinking that, okay, this can replace therapy, or if they need certain help, this can replace it. Is it just a starter, or is it something that can take the place of that if necessary? Just want that clarified for a lot of people who might have some misconceptions.
I'm going to jump out first and then make the doctor jump out. The book is not designed to replace therapy. You understand? Therapy is still needed, but the book is to start the conversation about your mental health. So you buy the book for the 30 days, you go through it, and you start identify with yourself what kind of problems you have. And when you find the problems then, and you find a couple of solutions, in that is going to be a therapy session where you say, no, art, book a session with a doc, like doc right here, Dr. Tanisha Clark, or so if you go on Psychology Today, or in the other platforms, you get yourself a doctor, and you sit down and you're talking, you know what I mean? And as you go along, because you do also want another person's perspective. You do want somebody else with more knowledge who can say, oh, you know what, that is looking in without an unbiased opinion. Because I read that you're doing a therapy really give you unbiased opinion, somebody who is not emotionally invested in what you are in, because you say, well, this will happen, whatever, and then come and give you a different perspective and say, wait, no, I never really look at it that way. Just now, where she pinpointed on, she went on the topic of toxicity. You understand where I come from? And we always think, and it's true, we think toxicity as people, but sometimes it can be the actual surrounding and the situation. So sometimes you will need that expounding of the mind. You see what I'm meaning? So what about me is designed for a read, if you're new to the topic of mental health, and and if you're old as well, whichever way you want to call it, but whichever one it is, but you want to do something and start right here. So, but it's not the end all and be all. Just like anything at all, you're always growing. Trees always are grow, and the universe always a grow. So of course, you definitely want, get going. So that's my 2 cents. The doctor will now take over.
No, it is not a replacement for therapy. Absolutely not. It is a starter. And you can use it along with therapy and medication management if that's your preferred method. It's a workbook, essentially. You couldn't learn accounting without a book, or you couldn't learn social work without a book, or you couldn't learn law without some type of guide, without some type of book. So it's a book, it's a workbook, and it gets you thinking about some of the issues that you need to talk about and that you need to dig deep on. And therapy, and people use this term therapy very widely. So let me kind of break this down, okay? So psychotherapy, okay, it's done over a number of sessions. So 1 or 2 sessions, depending on the severity of the problem, does not solve the problem. Okay, so it brings you, it gives light to an issue. It start to evaluate the issue, but you don't even start to put a plan together to solve until a couple sessions down the line. There is a change method that kind of goes into play with this. It's when you're looking at how change happens, sometimes change is not even conscious that you need to change yet. So once you bring it into, the consciousness of it or thinking about it, you go through stages or steps to change your situation. And a plan has to be developed before the change even happens. So that is therapy. That is therapy. That's how problem solving begins and ends. And you have to maintain it for a long period of time before it actually becomes part of your life. So there are steps to changing that take long periods of time. And that can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to 2 years. Okay. And you may not solve it in therapy. Okay. So let's just clear the playing field that therapy is the end all solution to everybody's problem. It is not. Okay. It is not. you bring light to a situation during therapy. You put a plan that starts the change process to the problem. And then you work that plan until it becomes part of your life, so that the problem no longer is a problem anymore. It's just an obstacle that's there that can kind of come and go, but now you have the know-all to kind of to deal with it and deal with the problems in itself and how to change those problems instead of seeing that as self-defeating. You might need therapy 3 or 4 times in your lifetime, if not more than that.
Describe how them go through a session.
How I break down a session. So I have an assessment process that happens. Well, no, let me back all the way up. Intake. I figure out why you're even coming to me. So I identify why you're coming to me. Have you ever did therapy before? You know, a lot of intake questions. And then I go into their assessment. Their assessment it kind of covers all, them from the beginning, as a child all the way up until present day and age. And then we talk about the assessment might happen. It might take 2 to 3 days for me to assess them, 2 to 3 sessions. So, and in that, I might do it in 1 hour. I might need 2 or 3 hours to do it. And then I develop a plan of treatment, a treatment plan. And sometimes the plan might take 2 or 3 sessions to do, because they're so, sometimes persons so confused, they don't even know what they need to work on to change. So, and then you have the actual treatment. Now that we have a plan, now we have the treatment that takes place, and that, off the bat, that could be 6 months in the beginning. And then we assess your progress on your steps or your objectives to change. And as you meet those objectives, there are other things that might come out, in the open that you need to change now. So we got another 6 months, we got to work on these new objectives, okay? Until you feel finally confident that you can move on your own and solve these problems yourself, or solve any problem that comes into play. Okay, so it could be very tedious, and it seemed very tedious in the beginning that we're not getting nowhere, but you are, because you never addressed these issues to begin with. So I can't solve a 20-year problem in a few days. That's not something that can happen. Okay.
No, we really give thanks for that explanation, because you mentioned 2 parts in the process that are extremely important. Accountability, more than 2 parts, the patience and just the amount of work that needs to go in. I notice with this therapy thing, I know people going to therapy, but it seems like they're not getting the tools that they need to deal with the problem. Because so I think like that's the biggest little thing.
They want it now. I want it now. I want to fix it now. I want to make money now.
Fix me.
Yeah, no, reality, mate.
Well, let me hear you say mountain, mountain.